I'm no longer a slave to fear, 'cause I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear, I am a child of God.
Welcome to Journey to Service, episode 37. William Laddick here, and we've got our guests as well, our regulars with us today. Lee Mudders, or Mudway, whichever you prefer, is with us, and Randall Kaiser as well from a snowy and cool, but not cold, Calgary. How are you guys doing? Lee, how are you?
Excellent. Another great week, peaceful, albeit a little bit tired this week, dealing with certain things, which I'll no doubt we'll talk about later. Maybe, we'll see.
See how things unfold. Well, it's going to be very organic today because I had not much in the way of pre-planning to do. Randall, how is it like in Calgary right now?
Good. Like we're just below freezing. So for you Americans, that'd be about 30 degrees Fahrenheit, I guess, something like that. But it's not so bad. There's no wind. So that's the big thing. When the wind comes up and it's chilly like that, it changes fast. So should be able to hang in there for an hour sitting here.
As a former Red Deerian, I know what he's talking about. Yeah, that wind makes things a lot different. That's for sure. In the wintertime, especially.
Looks glorious. It looks glorious there, around with all that snow and freshness.
Just see it with the lights at night. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Randall, I'm going to start with you. You've had, from my experience, you only had a couple of videos up, which tells me that you've been busy with other things and had a very busy week. Can you give us a little summary of what's been happening in your world?
Sure. Well, you know, it's got to be pretty obvious to everyone now, and it is, that the government system is imploding, and that means every government, you know, they got themselves into bed with this pharmaceuticalism and everything else, and it just really blew up, you know. Like if there's anybody left out there that isn't fearful and isn't you know, desperate because their fear is mostly lack, like as in a job with money or something, then they're just going to follow anyway. So we have to get going. We have to move forward. We can't sit back and wait anymore, you know. So the sit back and wait has been in my mind for a long time, and we've been working on it. Don't get me wrong. Like there's different foundational structures that I'm involved with, like the First Republic Registrar Foundation. And for the last, I'd say at least 5 months or 6 since I was introduced to it, the Divine Order of Santa Maria Foundation. Okay, I'll put foundation on the end of that just to kind of give the idea that when even two people come together, there has to be some kind of agreement. You know, you got to have the silver and the gold, the AG, the agreement, as well as the authentic internal truth, IT, capital IT. I came up with that one this week. It was like, I always say IT, and I'm referring to God because God is complex for a lot of people's minds, but it is like even one less letter. So why don't we just say it, you know? But it's internal truth, because there's the only external is the internal truth of others, you know. So we're dealing with the God spark in each human being when we're trying to figure out where we're going to go forward. So, you know, when I first heard of DOSM and started to attach to the people, it was a little bit of a challenge, and that challenge came to a head this week because there was differences, okay, differences in the ideas of the people, and the foundational structure of it was obvious in my mind. And then I started to see some differences. So questioning those differences brought it to a head. And honest to God, it was a tough week because we ended up with some, you know, conflict, and well, conflict in the minds of some people, and then just patience in the minds of others like myself, who just sat and listened to it explode. And that's what we do as, I call it Sigma male, you know, like we found that term this week too, that the Sigma is not the alpha who drives it, you know, which don't worry, I've got that in me too, but the Sigma is the internal listener, you know, the observer, this observing, meaning ahead of serving. And in this world that I'm involved in, it's all about service. It's not about getting something for myself. I've gone through all of that process. This is about getting something for humanity. And if the humanitarian foundation is there, I'm in. And that's where this is. You know, I've been involved with a lot of them, but this one I'm just feeling so confident. So that's been my week, and it's been a bit of a rough ride, you know, like when I let go, it was like, holy shit, where's this going to go now, you know? But that's what we do, you know, as we, you know, kind of ascend, is you get to a certain stage and then you just step into the frickin' frozen water or whatever, you know, like, and see what happens. So, but it turned yesterday, and today is thank God, a day of rest. And ironically, it's Sunday, so it was kind of unique.
Kind of fit in just nicely that that Sunday was the day of rest, as it turned out in your world, which is fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Lee, I'm going to ask you about your week a little bit too, because you said you kind of alluded to it a little bit secretively somewhat about some things happening in your world, and thought I'd just give you the chance to talk about your week as well a little bit. What's been going on?
It's kind of the same as Randy's story, where you get agendas, which is what Randy's speaking to, with other people's thoughts and this externalizing of everything else. And therefore but what it boils down to is lack. And that whole aspect of lack and need and want and control, which is, again, a fear-based thing going forward. It's become prevalent to me. I look at micro, macro. So things that happen to me on the micro, I will take into the macro and say, it's not just that, there's a lot more. And so I'm looking at this and been dealing with that this week, and just taking the time to observe where it was coming from in the individuals that were giving that information to me, and letting them speak to it, and then showing them something slightly different, so they can just release it and then move. And it's like layers and layers. As I was saying to a guy yesterday online, it's like layers of an onion. You don't need to be right. You don't need to know what's going to happen, because none of it matters. Just sit back in today and know what you know and just be. But that concept is difficult for everybody in this oppressive environment. Doesn't matter where you are in perceived levels, be it oppressed and the morbidly compliant. I quite like that, as opposed to the slightly awakened or the more awakened, or however you term these things. There's still this level of need, control, lack, and it's difficult. It's a heavy energy to keep hitting against, and it's a little bit like what Randy's speaking to there, where I believe that there was, you know, people that were supposed to be benevolent then turned out to have an agenda. Why? It's because they've got something they want to control. Why? You know, and these sort of questions come out, you know, and it just doesn't work, and it just stops you in your tracks, and therefore you got to listen. And then it's your choice whether or not you put in an interjection or walk away. So it's been an interesting week in that aspect, brother.
Awesome. And I'm noticing a similarity between the two of you, as you had kind of alluded to, Lee, already, but also in my life too. And the one thing I wanted to mention as well is, for me, what stuck out, Lee, the most was when you said very briefly, what's going to happen. And I have been literally obsessing all week about the volleyball business that I run, and going, okay, I'm constantly, you know, wondering about my cash situation. You know, COVID created a couple of things as well, and so I'm constantly thinking, am I going to have enough teams? Am I going to have enough money? How much do I have to set aside? All these questions, all based around control, and all based around worrying about what will happen. And here's the funny thing that occurred to me partway through the week, just a little realization. I'm going, ever since June of this year, every month, I've gone through the same kind of internal panic going, I don't know if I'm going to have enough money for rent. I'm not sure if I'm going to do, like, you know, we even witnessed that a little bit in our Dow call earlier this week when Anna was expressing some concern about her money situation. And for me, it was kind of thinking like, I don't know if like, now I can't go back to my parents because all the roads are washed out, and you know, like I'm making all this big drama in my head about, you know, what can happen, what, you know, and then at some point I just stopped, and a little quiet thought popped in my head, and it said, haven't you noticed you've done this every month for the last 6 months and you always turn out okay? Everything seems to work itself out. Why don't you trust a little more? You know, and it wasn't necessarily about like beating myself up over the head and feeling guilty, but it was sort of that like just trust. And there's that part of me that just doesn't want to do that. You know, it's just like, no, you don't understand. You know,
that's one of the things. That's one of the beautifully put, William. And that's one of the things that's become prevalent this week is that trust and faith in something that I never used to trust or faith. I had no trust or faith in anything prior, you know, but now that you got to relax, it's that surrender. And it's that seeing that this has happened before, and recognizing it and releasing it at every given level, that layer after layer after layer of anxiety, pressure, stress. My cousin just rang me, texted me earlier because he wants to come around and said, are you busy tomorrow? And I said, I'm never busy because busy means I'm stressed.
Beautiful.
You know, these sort of ideas that we start then to say to ourselves, why do I need to be busy? What's that about? No, there's some stuff I'm going to do, but it's not busy. It's enjoyment. You know, this sort of concept. And again, it's this release, shedding all the time. But we forget that we've gone through it over and over and over again, and nothing bad happened. Yet we still need to control again and again and again. And that creates that sense of anxiety and that uncertainty and that unease, which is basically fear based on previous experience. But we forget the previous experience didn't kill us. these sort of concepts moving forward. It's that layers, this release. And that's what I've been trying to help other people see. What is it that you're worried about? And there isn't really anything to worry about if you drop into a little bit of faith, a little bit of trust, and a little bit of surrender. But that's scary.
Yeah, in fact, darn right terrifying at times, to be honest with you.
But it works. It works.
We've got we've noticed over the last few weeks, Lee, that there's been someone there in the background who's been poking his head here and there, and you've seen kegs of beer and all kinds of things going on back there. But we thought we'd bring him in a little bit. So I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we've got another guest that jumped in here too that we're going to bring on as well. So Lee, who do you have with you?
This is my very close friend Andy. Been around. We've known each other for 20 years. I commonly refer to him as Frodo, but I'm not going to put that out on air. So I hope nobody heard that. But I'll pass you over to him.
Hi guys, nice to meet you.
Hi.
Pleasure to be in your company and be here today, this evening or morning, depending where you are. Afternoon.
Awesome.
You look beautiful.
Thank you. And you look very satisfied. Is it a good snack you've got there?
Well, it's my standard snack when I'm listening into these things in the background. They're called wasabi peas.
Oh, nice.
Wasabi, yeah.
They're very nice, very Moorish.
Well, that'll clean the sinuses for sure. I know that.
As I'm absorbing all the information, I chew faster and faster.
I see. So, well, you got to keep this, you got to keep the passages open so all the information can go through every orifice that you've got available to you, right?
Well, most orifices, William.
Okay, I gotta say something here. So that wasabi, on top of those great big fucking glasses that you're wearing, you don't want to get too close to the camera. We're gonna see your eyeballs.
No, well, what will happen?
I'll zoom in on him in a minute after he's had a few, and we can get right in there.
All the steam.
I've built a tolerance up to them now, Randy. I'm all good with them. I need to get them spiced up a bit more.
Good stuff, brother.
Adding a little spice in his life. Well, You may not be able to see his eyes because his glasses will steam up after a while because of all of the heat from the wasabi. And speaking of wasabi, Benjamin Mensah has joined us today as well. Benjamin, hi, how are you? And he's popping in from Africa. Hey, Ghana, right?
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, Ben.
Hi, brother.
How are you? It's a long time.
It's been a while,
Wonderful.
brother.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
So we've been
over
talking.
here,
We've been talking money here in this show, and Randall invited you to join us today because he said you and him were talking quite a bit this week.
yeah. Mhm. So, last week, our sister shared, in fact, moved me, and I also some time ago had a similar, what do you call it, problem, kind of. But each and every time I experienced that, what actually happened was I had an inspiration within me to look beyond, not to go beyond tomorrow, but live in the now. Okay, what it means, therefore, is that concentrate on what is immediately before you, because thinking of what might happen, might not happen, the past problems and all that, put you into a kind of anxious moment. And if you have BP, that is when it goes up. Okay. So being in the now, the moment you are in the now, I mean, things happen. And when you are thinking in the now tense, like you are present in the now, you do not, he said, be anxious for nothing. That's what the good book said. Be anxious for nothing, but in all things with supplication and thanksgiving, let your request be known unto God. Okay. So when you begin to live in the now moment, money goes away. The issue of money, and most of the things that you even think of with solving with money, they are not the problem of money. Sometimes you are thinking of food. Okay, God have provided the food somewhere. Sometimes you get it in bulk. Maybe it might not be what you want, but remember, I'm going back to the good book again. Said, He shall supply all your needs, not your wants, because wants is different from needs. For now, you need water. Okay, water is an essential commodity that you need to live. Air is, needed. So each and every time you are supplied with your needs, okay, not your wants, okay. But with time, when you begin to live in the now and acknowledge, living in that moment, all the other things, come as an add-up to you. And now you can do a lot of things. But if you become anxious, what's going to happen? And you are, jittering and and you are crying, But I have lived in anxious moments before, when you don't know when the next, meal is coming from. That was when I was a student in Europe. You don't know whether at the end of the month, you are living with a mega kind of, amount. Your rent that you receive is just enough to pay your bills, your rent, and then your transportation. For me, two things were very important for me: how I will move to and fro, okay, to where my institution was, and then my rent. These two things were of utmost important to me. I didn't care about the rest, because once I have water in the house, I'm okay. So, but I realized that worrying over these things over and over and over brought nothing to me. So it was like, forget about these things. They will take care of themselves. And at a point in time, when I forgot about all these things, one day I asked myself, how do I even, move to and fro to, school? And I realized that everything has fallen into, a perfect order. It is only when you worry And when you begin to think of how is it going to happen, then you begin to, but when you live in the now, the possibility, the universe orchestrates events, circumstances to help you. So there was getting to school from where I was about leave was about 45 minutes. Now there was a guy who had a car and he also had a need. The need he had at that particular moment was that he always drove lonely. And I didn't, have the means of transport. So each and every time he closed, he has to wait for me. And we drove together. And he will come and pick me and then drop me in my house. So I realized that, worrying and then thinking about all these things, how I will eat, whatever, what I will wear, things started falling in. People started, coming in. So in fact, when you begin to set your mind creates. When you begin to live in the realm of worry, then you get more of it. What the mind sets on to think about or create, you create more of it. If you focus on want, you get more of the wants. If you focus more on worry, you get more of the worry. But if you focus on the possibility, what if all the things I'm thinking about does not happen? That is a realm of possibility. So I rather prefer to expend my energy on those things rather than to think of how is this thing going to be paid. You are fidgeting and then you are fretting, but it doesn't happen. Most of the things that you fear, about 80% of them will never happen. And that is my own personal experiences. It will never happen.
Very good.
And I ended up with a story. There was a hacker, a young guy who was, hacking into stuff, and he hacked into an ISP. And because of his upbringing, he was so fearing that if these people get to know, and actually when he was hacking, he left a loophole. So the people could be able to trace back to his IP address, and he was afraid. In this country also, if they find out that he was the one, he may go to jail for maybe 10 years. So do you know what this guy did? Something told him go and then apologize to the director of the ISP. So he went to the director of the ISP and then told him, in fact, I hack into your service. I hack into your service and I saw this. So the guy was saying, what? Saying, okay, you have earned yourself a job. You have earned yourself a job. His fear rather led him into something, good. So that is how, your fear may end up bringing something good to you. So that is it.
Great story. I love that story. Thank you, Benjamin. I'm going to jump it over to Randall here because what Benjamin was talking about, I think, kind of makes me think of the comfort income that was part of the project thinking that you've been having in mind. Only part, of course. I know you have other projects in mind too, but Randall, if you want to speak to that, because I'm sure you must have gotten some things out of Benjamin sharing for sure.
Oh gosh, that was so cute. Like, the forgiveness, when you come forward and ask for it. Like, that was a beautiful ending, Benjamin. Thank you so much. But I guess the other thing that I kind of wrote a thing down this morning that I was thinking about when it comes to the idea of lack and where we're at now in that moment that Benjamin mentioned versus, what's going to happen and stuff, which is, it becomes anxious. It can be anxious, right? If you don't think in terms of just love going forward and goodness and happiness and all those kind of things, abundance, sovereignty, health, love, and euphoria, all that stuff, like if we're thinking about lack, then we're going to get ourselves anxious.
More of it.
And this government system in this last year has just shown us ultimately that they'll do anything to survive, this corporate agenda government, right? To survive. And that survival is based on fear, right? It's just driving fear into the minds of the masses in so many different ways. You know, your health, which is the one that really kicked up in this last year, obviously. People are fearful for their health rather than living in the moment, thinking in terms of how important it is to put things into your body, to get exercise, to breathe fresh air, to get some sunshine, which is coming out now and it feels so good. All that stuff, you know, like the simple things that'll keep you healthy. Rather than that, okay, you know, there's a fear of something and then we're going to give you the solution for it too. Like it's all just lack mentality thinking, and it's just desperation to keep these imploding ridiculous organizations that are known as governments alive, but they're dead. They're dead entities. They're nothing. They don't have anything to back them. They're just corporate dead entities. And so I wanted to just kind of one little thing before I let it into Lee's hands or yours, William, is that, you know, it's also based on some really simple principles, right? And the principle is always lack. And this lack of something, you know, to back the monetary system, right? So we've got this idea of how much gold and silver was out there to begin with, and then the fractional reserve and the birth certificates and everything, that was all just credit on top of some kind of fraction, right? And then people will tell stories about how much gold is in the Federal Reserve or the US Treasury in Fort Knox or stuff like that, you know, to kind of try and get people's minds onto the fact that, oh, Fort Knox isn't very big, so there must not be very much, you know. But and they did only leave a little certain amount into the banking system to start with a fractional reserve at the Federal Reserve, which is the basis of the monetary system, or has been the basis of the monetary system. And that basis was set up more or less after World War II, when everybody got together, a bunch of old boys and a bunch of the intellectuals, and said, well, let's kick it up here again, you know, and at that point, I think it was $34 an ounce on a certain amount of gold. But the bottom line with my story, I won't go into all the details in history again, like I usually rant on about, but is that, you know, there is so much of that precious treasure of Mother Earth, not only the resources that reduplicate themselves, including oil. Like, I mean, the ridiculous notion of fossil fuels, if people haven't caught on to that yet, there's something wrong, because oil is replenishing itself continually, and it'll never go away. And then the same story about gold or silver or treasures, you know, like versus the resources that we use for a monetary system, you know. So oil and gas have been used in a monetary manner, right? And gold has been used in a monetary manner. So that's the only reason I'm using that language. But it's that lack mentality, when the truth is there's abundance. There's so much gold and silver that's been mined, and trying to screw our minds up with history and say, oh, it started here, or we were monkeys back then, and then we started to become humans, and all this crap bullshit story about history. We've been mining gold and silver and precious metals and stones on this beautiful Mother Earth and taking it and stashing it away for so many years that nobody wants to put a number on it. And I'm not going to either. But where is all that stuff? Oh, they took it away in fucking spaceships. Get out of my life. Really? You know, we're here, and it's still here, and it's stashed and stored away, and very little of it is the basis. So this is the end of my story. A very little tiny bit of it is the basis of the reserve, Federal Reserve, fractional reserve, whatever you want to call it, monetary system. So the rest of it isn't even in the banks in a safekeeping receipt or a certificate or a assay or anything. It's just sitting there, you know? There's so much of it, and it's just sitting there. And nobody wants to talk about that because it'll crumble the whole story of lack that governments feed into our minds. So I'm going to stop there, guys, and just say that it's, you know, it's that stepping into our own knowledge right here and now where we live, okay? And saying, you know, like, how can I get past this ridiculousness, this moronic agenda that's happening? And I'll end it with that because I want to say, here's what did it for me, okay? This little thing right here and a nice clean shirt. My jeans are still jeans, but when I walk around, I used to kind of play with a diaper on my face or something like that. When I put this on, all of a sudden I had it just like that. It was the people that are respectable that are walking around downtown, as long as my hat is clean and my tie is on, they're like, hello, sir. So, and the rest of them that don't kind of buy into that sir thing, think, oh, he's a kind of a weirdo. Like, because look at, he's got a cowboy hat and a goofy bow tie. So it was the perfect thing for me to walk around invisible in this whole literally moronic construct. So I'll end it with that. Sorry, guys.
All right, Randall, that's awesome. You know, every once in a while I get these little weird messages that kind of come out of the blue. And there were two things I got from your sharing on that one, Randall. First of all, the Beatles' Octopus Garden song came to my mind. I like to be under the sea, in the octopus's garden, in the rain. It made me think of all those hidden treasures underground and, you know, underwater, actually, in some underwater cave somewhere, belonging to someone, not registered anywhere, just someone keeping it in their backyard, which happens to be underwater. So that's what came to my mind. You also oddly said something that made me think of another word for the jab, which you said the solution. And I never heard that expression before. And I thought, that's another word you can use instead of, you know, the V word. You can just say the solution that people are jabbing themselves with. So just very interesting stuff.
That thing.
That thing, yeah, the arm thing. Yeah. Something interesting Randall had said and Lee alluded to as well, and I'm going to ask Lee about this, and then Randall and I'll give Benjamin a chance too to speak on it if there's something that stands out for you. But as Randall introduced, we were talking about all of a sudden when you know the opportunity for money came into the picture, all of a sudden different agendas started to come in, and then some of them were about giving, but some were also about, you know, own personal benefit. And my question basically then is to Lee for now is, what do you see that we can do as humanity when like some of us who like still are dealing with money issues, and I definitely am one of those folks that, you know, sees, oh, if only I had enough money to make things work. If that, it will obviously be coming into the equation if someone all of a sudden gets a lot of money. So if some of these, like if GPMS or any of the other systems where money's all of a sudden comfort income comes into the picture and people start getting money that they'd never had before, you know, there's going to be that temptation, I would think, at first, at least, for greed or personal agenda or hoarding or any of that kind of stuff. Do you have any comments or thoughts about what individuals who may have to face that or run into that can do, Lee? Is there anything else that stands out about what I'm just sharing here?
To be honest with you, brother, no, because it's something we've never had. So I'm not going to throw something into the future based on something that we may assume others may suffer or go through on that aspect. What I will come into, though, is comfort income. I'm going to simplify that down and take the word income out. Comfort. What is comfort? What does humanity want for comfort? That's not just money. In fact, it shouldn't be money in the slightest. So let's disregard income. Let's create a world where income isn't the problem. So that's gone. Now what do they need? What now causes stress? What would cause me stress and what would cause you stress? Health. So there's another aspect. Freedom. There's another aspect. What stress would come in then if you're healthy and you're free? So let's take one of the systems, and let's take money being one of the major stress factors, that the oppressive state that's been controlling all of that. and add the rest on. What's causing all of this? How about lies? Do lies cause comfort, or do lies cause discomfort? How about not being able to find the truth, not being able to get any answers to any questions that you may have? Does that cause comfort or discomfort in the populace? So again, it's not just the one thing that we're talking to here. We're talking about oppressive structures. We're talking about obfuscations of truth. We're talking about medical disharmony. We're talking about the whole thing causing discomfort and stress and anxiety. So in these aspects, when we boil it down to, if you give somebody X amount of money, are they going to be greedy, hoarding all this, that, and the other? Well, if you give somebody truth, are they going to hoard that? They have done in the past. Are they going to hoard it in the future? Not when everybody wants it and everybody wants to be comfortable. Are you going to hoard medicines or medicinal or biological knowledge that actually open things up for humanity? Are these things going to be hoarded if we give everybody free? If we make everybody healthy, let's say med beds come in, celestial chambers, the frequency technology, and we go back down to purity. Are we going to charge then others and say, you're not having it, it's mine? These sort of ideas and concepts open this all up a little bit to take it not just inside a new monetary system or a release of the monetary debt, poverty, and all of these things that don't really exist. They're fictions in people's imaginations because they believe them to be true, and open the whole conversation up into what creates comfort overall. And this is where, I know what I am. I don't know who I am, but I know what I am, and I know what everybody else is, all my divine brothers and sisters on this plane. What do I want most? What brings me most comfort is truth and transparency. I don't give a fuck about money. Truth and transparency is what brings me the most comfort. And if I want truth and transparency, which I've termed, people call it in the New Age movements and spiritual movements, love and light. For me, it's truth and transparency. Love is truth. Light is transparency. These sort of things. So if I want truth and transparency, then I want all my brothers and sisters to have the same. And a bit like all the rest of this comfort, releasing humanity, all of these poverty things that we can talk about, we won't stop. We won't stop. Randy's the same with pushing through to this. It's that purity is really comfortable, and I want everybody to experience that in this now. So this is what I want to talk to, is not just the one thing, it's the whole thing, and open that conversation up.
While we're on you there, did Andy have any thoughts or anything that came to him during?
Yeah, just thinking about what you guys are saying there, and I'm just a great believer in the human journey that we're on individually and at a macro level, and I just believe in the human spirit to push through and have a positive denouement to the journey for everybody. And I think along the lines of what Lee's saying, the hope is that money becomes obsolete. It's so omnipresent. People don't use it as a form of trade or bartering or giving and taking. They don't need it's a stress taken away from their lives, and we can start to give our services to people to benefit the humankind, being truly altruistic, not the forms of altruism that are quite selfish. I think our journey is to be a truly altruistic society.
Thank you, Andy. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Randall, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just a quick response to Andy. That was beautiful, brother. And it brought to mind the idea that, we live in a cold climate. You can't sleep out overnight here right now. Like if you do, you're going to be stiff in the morning in a number of ways. But, in spite of these mechanisms that are in place, and I won't just focus on money, but everything else that's in place right now, we still see very few that are stiff in the morning. Like it's beautiful because God, or the humanity inside of us, the integral truth that's inside of us, or the inner truth inside of us, is there for others. We are looking after each other, our mothers and our fathers and our cousins and our neighbors and stuff like that. Humanity is good, Andy, and I wanted to support that because that was a beautiful statement, brother. Humanity is good, and it's going to pull through no matter what.
I had an interesting insight too that I wanted to share, because a few minutes ago we were talking about, letting go, and it seems as though when we have worry and anxiety and about the future and about money or other things related to the future, that we get tied up in that, and we end up creating more of a perpetual kind of situation where we just end up creating more anxiety and more worry and all that kind of stuff. But when you let go of that, it seems to take care of itself. So what I was getting is that I'm seeing kind of like a shift here all of a sudden that's going, let go of your money and start looking at, like Lee was saying, what do you want in your life? Especially if money is not any part of it or doesn't need to be any part of it. What is it you ultimately want? Comfort, truth, and transparency. If you want that, then what about also creating that for your fellow man so that you can spread it around? And by giving, you end up receiving, because we've heard that so many times, and so many people have experienced that as well. So I feel like I'm getting a little insight, but it's kind of like a diamond in the rough. It's got some rough edges and it's not completely polished yet. But I thank you for that, Lee, to plant that seed, because to me, like I could definitely speak for my situation. I'm focused on money a lot because I worry about money a lot. And so I end up re-perpetuating that over and over and over again, and never really seeming to come to a solution. There's deeper issues there that I've gotten in touch with, actually, thanks to Dawn from something that Randall and I were a part of earlier this week, where we did a session using EFT, emotional frequency tapping, I believe it's called, or something like that.
Freedom technique.
Freedom technique. Thank you, Benjamin. That's right. I knew that wasn't quite right, but you corrected me. That's a bang on. But yeah, the idea was that the issue is never about what you think it is. It's never about the money. It's never about, what you're worried about. Something deeper. And for me, it's about trust. Like, I believe that I can't trust anyone else to take care of me or my situation, and that I don't trust that there's a higher power. Even though I say there's a higher power, I don't act like there's a higher power. So therefore, I keep scrambling. I keep being anxious. I keep, clawing. Whereas if I just let it go and say, okay, I trust in this, I believe in this, that, and how can I help other people who have the same kind of anxieties and issues as myself by giving to them or helping them? It may in turn, not intentionally, not saying go and do that just to help yourself, but by doing that, you may see some things for yourself and get value for yourself out of doing that. Benjamin, any thoughts about anything I just shared there?
Yeah, when you started talking, I think yesterday I was in a company of certain elderly people who are so, I would say, they don't care whatever is happening. And I was sharing with them that sooner or later, the world will live in an unending freedom, that the things that they feared most will become something of the past that they will not even fear. They will live in freedom and everything that they want. And they were quiet. They were looking at me in a strange manner, as if this one, just walked from outer space into our midst. And the woman, one of the ladies among them, unfortunately asked a question. He said, do you mean sickness will be no more? All the disease? I said, yes, sicknesses will be no more, because there are technology which exists, which can heal you without tablets. So I took a picture of the med bed, okay? And I showed this woman. I said, how does this thing operate? So I said, it basically work with frequency, light, and stuff. So how did they know? I said, well, a sample of your blood is taken, analysis is done on them. They compare it with what it should be and what you have now, and then they balance it. So maybe your health level was to reach about 100%, and now you are about 80%, which is creating some conditions. They have to balance it. And then she was quiet, and then she was like, and then when she finished, she said, I asked her, will you permit yourself to undergo side treatment? They said, no, I like my tablets. So it's about the mindset, it's about the mindset. Though freedom will be given to, or will be put on a plate for, or there are certain people who are still stuck in the rut, okay, and would like to continue for some time in this rut because they are so used to, the way it's like the guy who put the fly, the experiment. I hope you know that experiment. They put a fly in the bottle and then seal it. And each and every time the fly wanted to go out, it hit the ceiling. At a point in time for about 21 days, the guy lifted the lid, okay? And when the fly jumps to that limit where the ceiling was, it just dropped back. In the subconscious programming of the fly, it is a limit, a limit that have been, imposed. So it always think it is there. So just imagine, it gives birth, and then it also imparts these instructions to the little flies that, hey, you can go to such a, but not, you can fly to this height, but not beyond that. And that is our programming, okay? So there's a lot of the programming that need to, do. That you cannot do, and you cannot have, and you can, all these things, have to get out of the subconscious mind, and the lack of limitation. Okay, I need to work within certain, time, or certain type of work to get certain type of X amount, all will need to be done away with. And it begins here. Randy always say here, it begins here. And then what you are hearing. And it was recently discovered that the balance to your normal life is what enters into your ear, okay? So people are hearing all kinds of things and they are losing their balance. But if you are hearing from the right source, you are in the right company, and you are, hearing means, I was listening to a rabbi also yesterday, and he said, there are two things which dominate the world today: seeing and then hearing, okay? But he said, seeing, the other side, the other group are using seeing more, because seeing, they see. What do you see? Oh, this thing I see is real. But hearing, if you hear, you are able to perceive and to see beyond what is presented to you from externally. But if it's coming from within and you see the possibility within you, or it's presented to you externally doesn't matter, because you have gone hearing deep within, you are perceived beyond what is coming from outside. So I believe there are things that need to be done, like the programmings that have been programmed into our subconscious through the television and through the news and through all the propaganda, and then the lies have to be, flashed out. And it will take time, but we will get there, and we are going gradually, because most of the things that even we know now, people like Neo in the Matrix, when he was shown, he said, let me out. I don't believe, when he was shown but I don't believe. I want to get out. I want to get out. That's what is happening, to many people. So that's it.
Benjamin, I can relate a couple things, and I had a couple of little follow-ups and see how you feel about this. And then I wanted to jump it to Lee for a second too, just feeling like I need to call on Lee. But you were talking about the fly story, putting the fly in the bottle, putting the cap in the bottle. Two things there. One is, let's say the fly was pregnant and the fly gave babies in those 21 days. So that there were more flies in the bottle with the lid on, but the lid was then taken off. So it sounded to me like you were saying if there were other flies in the bottle, the one fly that was there first that kept running into the ceiling all the time and eventually said, well, I'm not going to run into the ceiling anymore because it's there and I'm not going to, so that he taught all the baby flies, all the other flies that were in the bottle with him, don't go beyond that point because you'll smack your head. And so we're teaching each other the same limitation.
The same limitation.
Exactly.
That is what the science call a genomorphic resonance. You know, the morphic field around you, speak more. So it is telling anything around you immediately that is like you. This thing you cannot do it. So sometimes you even walk in the shop or you walk by people and you pick their subconscious programming. You just pick their thoughts. It's just a thought occurred to you. It's somebody's thoughts. And therefore you need to, walk clean. Otherwise you'll be picking some people's subconscious programming and some, things that they are broadcasting. As they walk, they are broadcasting their lack, they are broadcasting their fears, but you have to walk genuinely in love, genuinely in sovereignty, sovereign mind, sovereign might, sovereign power, everything sovereign, the authentic self.
Awesome. I heard a similar story too about an elephant, how they trained an elephant to be restrained by only a rope on one leg attached to one little spike in the ground. Well, that wasn't the case when the elephant was a baby. The elephant was originally really chained up and the baby couldn't do anything. But over time, it started to realize that it's not going anywhere, no matter how hard it fights. So then over time, they took all the chains off and just replaced it with one rope and one spike. And, the elephant never ran away after that. So that was an interesting
It is here.
Yeah.
The program is here.
Yeah. So I wanted to add to your story too, in the sense that if you're always doing it from the external in, and it's always going through here, what about coming from the internal from here, the heart? You can't see it very well on my screen, but going out, always starting with the heart as a place to get started. I'm going to pass it to Lee because I feel like I want to call on Lee. I don't know if Lee has anything, but I just felt the urge to call on Lee.
Weirdly, the elephant story I spoke to. Oh, somebody's echoing.
You're here.
Is that me echoing? No. Weirdly, the elephant story I spoke to with Randy just over a year ago, where you break the will. It's breaking the will.
Breaking the will, yeah.
And then we also got the 100 monkeys and the sea ovid 100 sheep. But I'd say the same thing with the morphic resonance. The other side of that can happen just as quickly as the conceptualization of the fear. That fear can be released just as quickly, because it's a collective resonance that everybody receives. If it's not full of fear, then it's full of love. And that's just as quick. So we don't need to put necessarily, it's going to take a long time to deprogram it in my mind. But the sovereignty and all of these things is the important key, and the externalization of everything, where you said a minute ago, William, about others looking after you. You can't trust anybody to look after you. Why would you? Can you not trust yourself to look after yourself? These sort of concepts come back in, and that's where it comes from the heart. I don't need anybody to look after me. I can look after myself. I don't need to trust anybody out there to look after me. These sort of things. Again, that's that, because it's what we're used to. It's what reality was. Is it what it's going to be? No, not in any way, shape, or form. And that's the time that we're in. Is this movement towards that more sovereignty? We know this.
I'm feeling like it's time to almost wrap it up, but I know Randall's on the move, but I thought if Andy had any other thoughts he wanted to throw in about anything we've just talked about the last couple of minutes, you're certainly welcome to, Andy. Anything jump out at you?
No, I'm just getting into the bulk speed and cadence of this. It's my first session when I've been a contributor, so I'll be better next time. I'll be better next time.
Well, we'll catch you without a mouthful of wasabi peas as well next time.
Wasabi.
This is virgin interview, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Randall, any thoughts about anything that we've shared so far? And I think, I mean, it's a little bit short, but I think we're getting real close. So I thought we might end it at this point.
Sure, that sounds good, William. I think I'm heading for some soup. I'm on day 4 of my fast, and I think I need some broth.
Same,
Or
brother. Same.
muffalo.
That's good.
I got a favorite place that'll make me some broth from their wonton soup, and it's delicious. So I'm heading over there. But yeah, what a beautiful meeting. Thank you guys. And thanks, Sandy, for your contribution. And thanks for coming, Benjamin.
Yeah.
We'll catch up with you guys next week, I'm sure. Whoever shows up.
Look forward to it.
You betcha. Well, I'll just say my thing, I guess. With peace, harmony, love, abundance, and freedom for everyone and everything every day. Heading for downtown. Abundance, sovereignty, health, love, and euphoria. I love you guys. We'll catch up soon.
We love you too. Bye bye.
Love you, brother. Love you.
Hi,
Cheers,
guys.
Go well. Go well, guys.
Love to anybody that is.
I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child